The UFC is back in my hometown of London this weekend, and in this video, I'm going to go through the entire fight card, starting with the main event of the evening all the way to the first fight of the night, and give you my betting analysis, picks, and predictions for every single fight on the card. Welcome to the official UFC London edition of the lucrative MMA betting show. And as I said, this week we are in London with a great main event matchup. Two guys who probably should have fought for the title a couple of years ago, and now they are fighting for a #1 contenders matchup. We have Movsar Evloev taking on Lerone Murphy. Two guys who are undefeated in MMA are facing off against each other. It is very, very rare where we see two undefeated fighters facing off against each other, so I'm super excited about this one. We have Luke Riley, who the UFC are trying to push to semi-superstardom, being that it's his second fight in the organization, and he's already in a co-main event matchup against Michael Aswell, a friend of the show and someone who loves to swing his fists at anybody they put in front of him, even if it's upper weight class. Both guys coming fresh off brutal knockouts in their last fight. That fight is going to be an absolute war personified. We got CLD Christian Leroy Duncan, who has put together a nice little win streak, cashed as a big underdog in his last fight, taking on Roman Dolidze, who looks to get back in the top 10 title picture after losing his last fight against Fluffy Hernandez. We got MVP, the legendary Michael Page, on the card, taking on the absolute streaking Sam Patterson. Baraniewski has to get a shout out, coming in off a fight of the year, one round fight of the year contender in 2025 against Aslan. He's taking on Austen Lane as a big favorite. So boys, many banger fights for me and you to talk through together, and I ain't gonna waste your time or my time any longer. So I'm gonna run the intro now, and I'll see you on the other side for the full analysis. So welcome back to another show, lads. I'm happy to have you here. The UFC is back in my hometown of London. So you know, I'm going to be keeping my eye on this card a little bit more. Unfortunately, I won't be there in the flesh. I have other responsibilities, but I know the arena, the O2 Arena, where it will be staged very well. You know, I remember being super young and going to the O2 Arena. I actually watched Jay-Z perform there when I was like 17 years old or something like that. Me and one of my mates went. I also took my little sister to the arena. It's like a arena kind of attached to it, like opposite it, to watch the X Factor. If you guys know what that is, it's a show in the UK. It's like a big show. I think it went all around the world, to be honest. They have an American version, etc. But she really liked the show, so I got her tickets for that when we were super young. I must have been, again, about 16, 17. So I know the arena very well. And I also know the fighters on this card very well. We have Michael Venom Page, who's one of my favorite fighters. And honestly, it's just because he's from London. You know, he's from England. So, and he's super flashy style. And I've actually known about MVP for such a long time. You know, from 10 years ago, I knew about MVP. I was watching his highlights way before he even went to Bellator. I remember that highlight he got on UCMMA, which is an amateur MMA organization in the UK. They put pro fights on as well, but you can fight amateur there, WCMMA, UCMMA. And I remember him going viral back in the day for getting crazy knockouts on the UK regional scene. So we've got him on the card, a bunch of other fighters, but more importantly, we have another chance to profit. Now, this is being recorded before the Kevin Vallejos and Josh Emmett card, so I can't say how I did on that card, but the 3 cards before have ended in a loss. So we're currently in a downtrend, and I need to dig myself out of that hole. Downtrends and uptrends, honestly, are part of long-term betting. So it is what it is. We are still up over 7,000% bankroll ROI since I started. So the process remains unchanged. The discipline stays there. Execution stays sharp. But I am ever that more motivated to get back to a winning streak. So without further ado, let's start with the main event of the evening, and I may have a betting angle straight off the bat on that fight. And it is Movsar Evloev versus Lerone Murphy. So Movsar Evloev coming into this fight with a record of 19 wins and not one single loss. Lerone Murphy, on the other hand, 17 wins with not one single loss. He does have one semi-blemish on his record, which is a draw, which I am going to talk to you about specifically. That was in his UFC debut against Zubaira Tuhugov, but still a very shiny record, 17-0. The odds makers don't care, as they have Movsar Evloev, the -260 160 favorite with the underdog price tag on Lerone Murphy sitting at plus 220. Fantastic fight, guys. And before I introduce the fight, as I said, I may have a betting angle for this fight. And I'm going to tell you straight away that the betting angle that I may have is Movsar Evloev to win. Movsar Evloev to win via decision. The over 4.5 rounds, depending on what price it is. Those odds are not released yet. And that's the way I might look to tackle this fight. Look, at the end of the day, boys, if the odds start skyrocketing somewhere, then I may play the opposite of what I just said. I mean, if so much money comes in on Movsar Evloev and Lerone Murphy is a plus 400 underdog, and, you know, maybe some of his props are crazy as well, I may have to take the shot there, right? Because betting is all about getting a good number and watching your long-term edge play out over the years that you're betting, over the months that you're betting. You just have to get a plus EV number, right? And obviously there is a number out there that would make me want to bet Lerone Murphy. If Lerone Murphy was 1 million to 1 underdog, everyone on the planet is betting him, including you, including me, and including everybody, right? So yes, there is a number, but currently where the number is and where I suspect some of the decision prop numbers to be, like if I'm projecting the odds, I feel like I would only go to bat with a Movsar Evloev or an over via decision type ticket. I haven't made my decision on what bet I'm going to place on this one, but that would be my angle if I had one. You know, if you put a gun to my head and said, what should you bet in this fight? It would be those 3 bets, because I really think that the game that Movsar Evloev has, one, is like almost impossible to stop. No one's been able to do it so far. But 2, it's actually pretty well suited to beat Lerone Murphy. You know, so boys, every time you get a fight, you have to determine how the opponent deals with their opponent's game, right? And a lot of people don't really think of this too much. I'll tell you something I've noticed now. I have a tipping service, right? So people pay me for my information. And so I kind of get an insight into or how they bet, right? How they think about MMA matchups, because I have my private community where we're all in a group chat and I can understand the mindset of the people who bet on MMA, right? And I've noticed there that a lot of people bet on MMA based on the fighter that they're betting's attributes. Right. So, for example, if someone wanted to bet Lerone Murphy, oftentimes you'll ask them why they bet Lerone Murphy, and they won't speak anything about his opponent, Movsar Evloev. They will only speak about Lerone Murphy. Well, you know, Lerone Murphy's got very good stand-up. He's got good cardio. He's got good striking. He's just been doing so well lately. And, I mean, they're missing 50% of the puzzle. I'm not saying everyone does this, you know, and oftentimes they may not do it completely. Like maybe they'll say 1 or 2 things about Movsar Evloev. But I've just noticed that MMA bettors are not paying attention to the fighter they want to bet opponent as much as they should be. And when I look at this, the reason I'm saying Evloev might be a good bet here is not really because of Evloev. It's mainly because of Lerone Murphy, man. Because I've seen time and time again in Lerone Murphy's career that he struggles with the exact game that Movsar Evloev has, which is volume takedowns and consistent pressure, you know? And that's really what it comes down to. I mean, you can go back to Lerone Murphy's debut against Zubaira Tukhugov. I did mention that a little bit in the introduction, right? It was a draw. Lerone Murphy got knocked down in round 1 and he got smashed on the ground, some ground and pound, and the judges scored it a 10-8. Now, whether it was a 10-8 or not, you know, I don't know. Like, that's up for interpretation, but it was a 10-8. And he got grappled in the first round after he got knocked down on the feet, right? And then in round 2 and round 3, actually came back, and more power to him. He came back and won the next 2 rounds, much like he did very recently against Dan Ige, you know, gets knocked down and comes back. So he's a very resilient fighter. I'm going to give that to him there. But the point I'm making is that in the second and third rounds, he's getting grappled a lot. And even though the judges scored those 2 rounds for him, it was very close. A lot of media scorecards scored round 3. I would suggest that it would be round 3. They don't actually tell you the exact rounds that the media scorecards score. We're getting a bit technical here. But a lot of the media scored at least one of the rounds 2 or round 3 against Lerone Murphy. And there was no knockdowns there. Zubaira Tukhugov was completely gassed out. But what was he doing? He was shooting takedowns. He got 6 takedowns on Lerone Murphy in that fight. He only shot 8 takedowns, so he got 6 takedowns. So you're talking above a 70% takedown accuracy from someone who, by the way, was very, very gassed on a lot of those takedown attempts. They didn't come in round 1 because he got a knockdown in round 1. He didn't need to. You know, he was gassed out in round 2 and round 3 and was still able to get above a 70% takedown percentage rate on Lerone Murphy while being tired. And he also had 9.5 minutes of control time, right? And Zubaira was tired. Like he's not a great control grappler as it is, but he still was able to do that to Lerone Murphy. Now, I feel like Lerone Murphy got away a little bit lucky there. Do I agree with it being a draw? Probably, you know, probably. I'd have to go back and watch it again. I've literally watched it today, but I have to go back and watch it again and score the fight. You know, when I watch these fights, guys, I'm not scoring them because I'm looking for specific key moments and sequences, and I'm trying to understand how Lerone in this matchup does with Zubaira's game and how that relates to his fight with Movsar Evloev. So I wasn't even watching it to score, but, you know, I definitely thought Zubaira could potentially have won that fight. You know, he won the first round and he could have won like the third round, although probably I would score it for Lerone. Basically, you get what I'm trying to say, boys. It's like he struggled. Lerone Murphy struggled there with the grappling, volume, takedown, control time game of Zubaira Tukhugov, and Movsar Evloev is 10 times better than that. Now, caveat, Lerone Murphy is 10 times better than he was in that fight. That was a long time ago. It was his UFC debut. Am I saying that just because of that fight, he's going to get grappled here? No. We can speak about every Lerone Murphy fight, but I'm conscious of time. Sometimes it's hard for me to break down an entire fight because there's so many pieces of the puzzle in the fight. So always know that these videos, even though they're quite long, you know, I'm spending 5 to 10 minutes on each fight. It's just my overall thoughts. I could probably spend an hour on each fight, to be honest, because there's so many dynamics that go into a fight. But I try to give you the most important points. If we go back and we look through Lerone Murphy's career and some of his other fights, I mean, we look at the Makwan Amirkhani fight. He gets taken down, completely dominated in round 1, looks like a fish off his back to some degree, and he gets a flying knee knockout in round 2. We look at the Aaron Pico fight, which was his last fight, the fight that shot him to semi-superstardom and got him this number 1 contenders fight. And if he wins this, he's fighting for the belt. And in that fight, he was taken down multiple times by Aaron Pico. He looked good in that fight. He looked good. He got up easily each time, basically, but he was also taken down easily. And I don't think Lerone Murphy has good takedown defense. I honestly don't. You know, like, let's just put the cat out of the bag. Like, I don't think he has good takedown defense. I don't. I think he's got good get-ups. You know, I do think he can be controlled. I don't think he's got amazing get-ups, but I do think he's got good get-ups. But he doesn't have good takedown defense. I mean, it's pretty easy for fighters to take him down. I don't think Movsar Evloev has the best takedowns. He just takes everyone down because of his relentless pressure, his relentless pace, and he just doesn't stop, you know? So he's always going to take fighters down. But I don't think he has the best control, and I don't think he has the best takedowns in general, you know? So can Lerone stop a few? Can Lerone get back up to his feet? Most certainly, yes. Will he do that? Most certainly, yes. This is a great fight. Both fighters are very, very elite level. Let me show some respect on Lerone Murphy. This guy's a much better striker than his opponent, Movsar Evloev here. He's more technical. He has more power on the feet. He's more dynamic on the feet. You know, this guy's got knockouts with the knee, knockouts with the elbow. You don't see that from someone like Movsar Evloev. I will say, though, that Movsar's game is actually very tricky to fight against. Because of his grappling style, we see him go almost 50-50 with these guys who are so much better at striking than him. We see him go 50-50 with them in the striking, like Arnold Allen, for example. I mean, that was a very competitive fight on the feet. Arguably, Movsar Evloev won the striking there. He was the only person to rock anyone in that fight. And he rocked Arnold Allen badly. I'll tell you now, if he was a little bit more clinical and had a bit more power, that was a knockout win for Evloev in round 2. It was a step-in jab. I do think it was not lucky because it was a beautifully well-timed jab, but it was like a very unrepeatable knockdown. It wasn't a knockdown officially, but it was a knockdown if you watch it. I mean, not really, but you get what I'm trying to say. I'll play it for you now, and you can kind of, you know what I'm trying to say, boys, right? It was a big wobble. So I do think that what I was going to say is I do think that was kind of lucky. It was just perfectly timed. By the end of the day, man, it happened. He did it, you know? And outside of that, he's landing body kicks on Arnold Allen. He's throwing head kicks. Like, he's performing well on the feet, but that was only because his takedown threat, you know? Like, not only, look, his striking's all right, but you get what I'm trying to say. Arnold Allen was just worried about the takedowns, so it enabled Movsar Evloev to do things such as shoot down for a takedown, fake a takedown, and then come over the top with the right hook, come over the top with the right overhand. He did that multiple times in a fight, and that is really what his striking game is built around, the threat of the takedown. He's got a good jab. You know, he can ping jab. He can ping a jab out there. He knows how to fight behind the jab. He's got some good body kicks, pretty flexible, good head kicks. You know, like, the guy's not a bad striker at all. He's getting better. He's improving. And the whole striking game is just built around the takedown. You know, it's kind of like Khabib. Khabib would tag up these fighters like Justin Gaethje. He dropped Conor McGregor. And he hurt some people on the feet just because they were so worried about his takedown game. I spoke to you about the fact that Lerone Murphy may have lost that Zubaira to Hugo fight, even though I scored it for him. If we go back and watch another fight of his, Gabriel Santos, he lost that fight, boys. He won it via split decision, but in my opinion, he lost. So you're talking about Lerone Murphy being an undefeated fighter, and I'm potentially scoring 2 fights against him. I scored the Gabriel Santos one against him. I scored the Zubaira one as a draw. But in another world, those 2 fights are L's, right? So he's not really this shiny prospect who's never been beat before. There are blemishes on his record, how I see it. I see him losing that fight to Gabriel Santos. I don't care that it says undefeated because he lost. You know, in my opinion, he lost that fight. And so that's an L on his record. In my eyes, it doesn't change much. It just changes the fact that he's not undefeated. Not in confidence level. In his mind, he is. Confidence level, he's still got that undefeated mindset. But what I'm trying to say is I've seen chinks in the armor. I've seen him lose a fight. You know, I haven't seen that from Movsar Evloev. He's got a split decision on his record. Go back and watch that fight. It's a horrific split decision. It shouldn't have been a split decision. And a split decision on Lerone's fight, it shouldn't have been a split decision either. It should have been a unanimous decision loss, in my opinion. And in that fight, what happened? He got grappled in that fight. He didn't only get grappled. It was a great fight, a brilliant back and forth fight. You know, it was a very close fight. But he got grappled in that fight. He got controlled for 4 minutes. He got taken down 5 times, just as much as he got taken down against Amir Khani. You go back and look at the Josh Emmett fight over 5 rounds. Josh Emmett's getting 4 takedowns on you. I just feel like Lerone has been grappled so much his entire career and he's gotten away with not losing a fight. I think it ends here. I think Movsar Evloev wins here. Now, I will say this is going to be a very competitive fight, you know, very competitive. And I don't even know if I would play Movsar at minus 260. I'm really more looking for the Movsar decision over 4.5 because I think Lerone is super tough. I think it'll be unlikely that Evloev gets his first finish in the UFC here against his best opponent to date, outside of maybe Aljamain Sterling. But Aljo was coming up in weight class, so, you know, there's an argument there. And so I kind of feel like it's going to be another decision for Evloev. So I can't really tell you to go and play minus 260 money line when the decision's going to be a better price tag and maybe more value. Again, we'd have to wait for the decision to come out. But that's how I currently see the fight, boys. I think it's going to be a back and forth fight at times. I think Lerone's going to win a round or maybe 2. It could happen. I think he's going to be competitive in all rounds. You know, even though he'll lose most of them, I think he's going to be competitive in them. And look, at the end of the day, if you're a striker and you're landing shots in the clinch like he does, I mean, go watch that Aaron Pico fight. Very beautiful game plan. Big flying knees. He's getting taken down at will, but big flying knees, elbows in the clinch, elbow to finish it. This is the game plan that he's going to have against Movsar. Although Movsar does not rush in like a ball in a china shop, he actually stays on the outside and times his single legs usually into doubles so well, and he changed them together. It's just not Aaron Pico's game, right? But what I'm trying to say is Lerone has these tricky shots for these grapplers in close, right? These elbows and stuff like that. So when you're that type of fighter where you're the one landing the more damage, which for the most part it will be Lerone landing the more damaging shots, you always have a chance for the judges to be like, you know what, yeah, you got grappled, but I remember that elbow. That was the biggest damaging shot of the fight. And these judges are absolutely boys. Like, we know that, you know, like the judges are absolutely gone. So it's always a worry when you bet a fighter who's a big chalk favorite to win and you think he can only win, or most likely he's going to win via decision. There's always, you're opening up interpretation from the judges. I hope that makes sense. So that's it, boys. You know, we've broke down this fight sufficiently. A couple of other interesting things I wanna give to you. Some narrative talk is that Evloev is coming in after a long layoff here. That's a big point that I didn't mention in the breakdown yet. Evloev has been off since his Aljo fight. And that fight was back in 2024. It was in December 2024, but nevertheless, it was in 2024. You're talking about a year and a half at this point. It's a long time ago, boys. You know, almost a year and a half. Not a year and a half, almost a year and 4 months or whatever it is. So that's a long time to be out of the octagon. Lerone Murphy has been stringing together win after win after great performance after great performance of the night, bonus of the night in Edson fight and you know, the Pico fight during that period. So he's primed and ready to go, right? Whereas Evloev has been off. You ask James, why has Evloev been off? I'm going to tell you. He had a bad virus that affected his entire body. He thought it was COVID or something similar, and it affected his entire body, including his cardiovascular system. He was training and could not breathe via training, right? So he hasn't been able to push hard over the last year or so. He's better now, but these things count for something, especially at the top level of the game, at top level MMA. I mean, on their day, either of these fighters could be UFC champion. They could pull it out of the bag. You know what I mean? If you put either of these guys against Volkanovski, like, if they fight 100 times, they're going to beat Volk like a portion of those 100 times. 100%, right? Like Volk's not minus 900 against these guys. That's a closely lined fight. Very closely lined. Volk's probably the underdog against Evloev, right? I would guess. But anyway, that's neither here or there. What I'm trying to say is at the top level of the game, which these guys are undoubtedly, these little things, which are kind of a big thing, you've been off injured, your whole body is just destroyed by a virus for a year. These things can make a difference. Now, it's very hard to know how much stock to put into these things. Like, how can we say how much is going to affect Movsar? We can say it's not a positive. That's what we can say. I can't say that makes Evloev 5% less likely to win the fight. What I do, though, is I add it into my capping. I add it into my thinking. All these things, all these different little things are going into my thought process when I'm ultimately making my bet. Giving my breakdown is one thing, but making my bet, when I actually click the bet button, that is when all of these things are going through my mind. And it's definitely a negative for Movsar Evloev. Another thing that I've noticed, he's at ATT and he's not in London yet, right? And this is about 11 days out from the fight right now. I'm recording this I'm calling this a couple of days before Vallejos versus Emmett. He's still in America. He ain't in London. So he ain't going to be acclimatizing great. You know, I've done the trip from America to London many times. You need about 2 weeks to feel fully right, maybe a week if you're doing everything right. So he ain't going to have much longer than that. If I was a UFC athlete, I would be getting out 3 weeks before the fight, at least. At least, what are you going to learn in 3 weeks? You're not going to learn anything in 3 weeks. You can keep fit in London, right? I don't understand why these guys... Actually, I do understand a lot of it's money, right? But let's not go down that route. They ain't got the money. I know professional fighters. They ain't got the money to go out 3 weeks before. They can't afford it, right? Anyway, that's not a positive. Lerone's in his home country. This is where all the narrative comes in, boys. I hope you like it. Some people love narrative. Some people hate narrative. I think it's interesting, although most of my breakdown is always on a technical, stylistic analysis because that's really what holds true more than the narrative. But sometimes the narrative dominates the entire fight. So, Movsar Evloev has had this injury where he couldn't train, he couldn't breathe. It decimated his entire cardiovascular system. That's why he had to pull out of his fight against Aaron Pico. He got over that illness, flew to Thailand, flew to ATT, trained there. He went through Ramadan as well. Movsar Evloev is a devout Muslim, so he's gone through Ramadan during his training camp. Ramadan literally just finished, or will finish by the time this video is out. I believe maybe even on the day. It finishes like middle of March, and this fight is a week after that. So his whole training camp has been throughout Ramadan, and then he's not going to acclimatize to the UK. He's not going to get out there to about a week before the fight. So that's all negatives. And Lerone is fighting in his hometown. He has to make the trip from Manchester to London, which is about a 5-hour drive or something like that. So, I mean, yeah, you take a plane, it's 45 minutes. It's not really, there's no acclimatization there. So I think all of the intangibles favor Lerone. So there you go. Maybe that's another reason you don't bet the minus 260. But ultimately, boys, my prediction is the prediction I gave you at the start of the breakdown. I hope you enjoyed the breakdown. We went in depth on that one. Let's move on to the next fight now. But my ultimate prediction is Movsar Evloev wins this one with activity, with volume, with takedowns, with pressure, with pace, and with cardio over 25 minutes and wins a decision against Lerone Murphy in his hometown. Next up, the co-main event banger, a fight that cannot be anything outside of a legitimate war in the featherweight division. We have Luke Riley taking on Michael Aswell Jr. Luke Riley coming into this fight, a record of 12 wins, no losses. Michael Aswell, on the other hand, 11 wins and 3 losses. Luke Riley, as you would expect, a semi-big favorite because he does have some hype behind him coming out of that Paddy Pimblett camp. He is the minus 225 favorite in this fight, while Michael Aswell has an underdog price tag of plus 190 odds. Absolute banger of a matchup, boys. Super, super excited for this one. A striking war, a war personified. Two guys are going to go in there and swing in the pocket till someone gets knocked out or until they have fight of the night. And I completely think that that's what's going to happen here. You know, I don't see anyone shooting grappling consistently. I just see two guys going in there and throwing hands for the most part. And I think it's going to be a very exciting fight. And first things first, I don't think that Luke Riley is deserving of such a big price tag for the most part. And I'm going to tell you why. He may turn out to be deserving of that price tag after the fight, but it's just one iteration of the fight. You know, if these guys fight 100 times, I think it's going to go different almost every time. You know, they're always going to war in the middle, but I think the result and the knockdowns and the way the judges see the fights, etc., is going to be different a lot of the times. And the reason is boys, because Luke Riley's style is predicated on that big shot. You know, Luke Riley is a very good striker, very calm striker, very patient striker, but it is really predicated on his opponent slowing down and him pouring on the pressure late, or him just landing that big shot. And he's very, very good at it. He's very good at landing a big shot. Make no mistake about it. But the issue with your style being predicated on you landing a big shot is that you can be out-volumed, outworked, and in the eyes of the judges, you can be losing rounds until you land that big shot. And the thing about MMA is you don't always land that big shot. You know, sometimes it just doesn't happen. Or maybe you land a big shot in one round, but you don't get a KO, but then the other 2 rounds, you get outworked. So although you did the more damage and people think maybe you won the fight in school, you know, playground rules, you still lost round 1 and round 3. And yeah, you had a good knockdown in round 2, but you lost 2 out of 3 rounds, so you lose the fight. So that can often happen when these fighters' styles are predicated on a big shot. You know, Luke Riley reminds me of Mauricio Ruffy to that degree, where his style is predicated on the big shot. Now, Mauricio Ruffy is one of the best in the entire sport at landing that big shot. So it's not the greatest example. I think Luke Riley is also really, really high level at landing that big shot. I will say that. I don't think he's just an average big shot fighter. But someone like Mauricio Ruffy, this guy's going to be he's going to fight close with people outside of the big shot, right? I mean, look at his fight against James Lontop. You know, it was a very close fight outside of the 2 big shots he landed. Look at his fight against Rafael Fiziev. You know, I had a bet on Ruffy there at plus 140, and I wasn't confident he was winning the fight up until the knockdown. Now, I thought it was a great bet at plus 140 because it looked about 50-50, you know, and it's all about getting value on the line, not really the result. You know, if he would have lost that fight, Mauricio Ruffy, if he would have lost the decision, I would have still said that was a great bet, and I'd make it again, even though it was a losing bet. And that's why I always preach to you guys, losing bets and winning bets, it doesn't really matter. It's all about how much value you got on the line after the bet, right? Because winning bets can be terrible and losing bets can be good. It's just, that's part of the game, right? Mauricio Ruffy in that fight against Rafael Fiziev, outside of landing that knockout in round 2, it was looking like a very close fight. It was looking like a 50-50 fight, right? If the fight went to a scorecard, if he didn't land that shot in round 2, then who wins the fight? Fiziev may win that fight. You know, now obviously he did land a shot. As I said, he's one of the best at doing it. But you get what I'm trying to say. Like, the judges can see you getting outworked. The judges can see other fighters landing, your opponent landing shots on you, and you can lose rounds like that. You can lose minutes. So that's kind of like how I see this fight to some degree. I think Michael Aswell is very different than Luke Riley. He's a very different striker. He's going to throw a lot of volume out there. He's going to pump the jab. He's a good boxer. He knows how to deliver his shots as well. And he doesn't mind if he lands a shot on your chest. He doesn't mind if he throws a hook to the body and it hits your hip. You know, like, he doesn't mind if he has to throw a few shots and you're blocking him and you're parrying him on your guard. Like, he doesn't mind that. He will throw the volume out there. He's a high volume guy. Now, I do want to add the caveat that when I'm looking into Michael Aswell fights, there are fights that he isn't as high volume as he is in other fights. You know, there are fights where he's kind of letting his opponent get away, even though he's got the cardio advantage. He may have already hurt them before. He's pressuring them, but he's not landing. He's not throwing the volume, you know, so he's not always a high volume guy. And I do worry in this fight that because Luke Riley has power and presence in the cage, Michael Aswell's volume may be diminished a little bit. So that is something to note here. But I do feel like Aswell's going to be the one throwing the more shots, landing the most shots for the most part. He also seems very durable to me, Michael Aswell, you know, so I can't guarantee Luke Riley's going to be able to finish him like he has done most of these guys, but also I'm not going to rule it out. I mean, Luke Riley is he's a KO artist at the end of the day, you know. Luke Riley's also quite easy to hit himself, you know, and oftentimes he just has a good chin, he pushes through and he lands his own shots better than his opponents, but he gets reckless in there, especially when he's hunting for the kill. His hands come down and he can be tagged, he can be hurt. I don't know about hurt, like he obviously can be hurt, it's an MMA fight, but he can definitely be tagged, you know, which is a worry here. I feel like this fight is more than likely going to go to a decision and it's just going to be a high-paced war. Luke Riley is out of the Paddy Pimblett camp and I kind of feel like he's being pushed into this co-main event because of that. You know, Paddy Pimblett, massive star for the UFC, one of the biggest stars, and he didn't even take long to rise to that superstardom. So they're trying to push Luke Riley here, co-main event spot in your second fight in the UFC in your hometown. I mean, it's almost never happened before. You know, Luke Riley is kind of crazy that he's getting a co-main event here. So I think they're pushing him because of his camp. He's got a solid camp. His training partner, Shem is on this card as well. who's also in that Paddy Pimblett camp. So they want a new Liverpool star. They always want English stars. It's a big market for them. And then on the other hand, we have Michael Aswell, who trains with some really, really heavy hitters as well. I mean, he trains with Joshua Van and Alden Correa at 4-ounce MMA. The gym is owned by Daniel Pineda, who is also a UFC fighter. I don't know if he's still in the UFC, but he was in the UFC for many years, veteran of MMA. So Michael Aswell's got great training partners, some of the best in the world in Joshua Van, and Alden Correa is, he's on a rocket ship to the top at the moment in the lighter weight classes. So this guy's been sparring these guys for absolute years, and you can tell with the way he fights, a very clinical striker. So two heavy hitting camps going up against each other in this one, with Next Gen Liverpool versus 4-ounce MMA in a co-main event in the Next Gen's home country. It's going to be a great fight. So I think that the judges could be swayed by the English fans who are notoriously loud. Take it from myself, I know that personally. I wouldn't be surprised if every time Luke Riley lands a shot, the English crowd go crazy. Now, Luke isn't from London. He is from Liverpool. It's a completely different part of the country. And Liverpudlians and Londoners don't really get on. But there's going to be so many Liverpool and Luke Riley fans in the O2 in London. So I still think it's going to be massive cheer. And they ain't going to cheer for Michael Aswell. You know what I mean? Even the Londoners, they ain't going to cheer for Michael Aswell, are they? So yeah, I kind of feel like the judges have to be spoken about in this one. Anytime we go to a country where the fans are going to go crazy, you have to factor it in to the judges' scorecards. And I feel like Luke Riley's, I think he will have a couple big moments. And I think the crowd's going to go crazy and that could sway it, So I'm going to pick Luke Riley in this fight. Very good fight. Luke Riley hasn't got the easy matchup where he has a lot of the times where his opponent gasses out or, can't keep up the pace that they tried to put on him in the first 1.5 rounds, and then he comes back in the later half of the fight, which he done throughout his Cage Warriors career. He even did it against Bogdan Grad. Round 1 was an easy round for Grad, and then he landed his shot in round 2. I don't think it's going to be the case here. I don't think Aswell is going to, just fall off a cliff after round 1 like a lot of his opponents have done. I don't think Luke Riley's really going to be, putting a crazy pace and pressure on him in round 3. I think Aswell's going to be able to keep up cardio-wise, but I do think he's going to be outmatched by the power and deliverability of his shots. So that's my breakdown of the fight. Ending the breakdown, I do want to say that I have a bias towards Michael Aswell. He did come on my show. I like Michael. He's a good guy. I am a little bit biased towards him. I'm trying to be completely professional and give you my full unbiased opinion, but I want to be transparent and tell you guys that I probably am a little bit biased towards Michael. I'm a human at the end of the day, so I just want to give you guys as much information as possible. But that was the breakdown, boys. I did pick Luke Riley at the end of the day. I can't see any value on -225 money line. Maybe there's a different way you want to play it. I think probably Luke Riley might land a knockdown or a big shot, but I think Aswell will last to a decision. So maybe the over is going to be something you could play, or Luke Riley via decision. But at the same time, man, it's going to be an absolute war for 15 minutes. So do you really want to sweat that? Are you going to be comfortable watching that fight at home? Especially if you're not doing this game for a long time and you haven't got the emotional control to sit through a fight where you could see knockdowns on both sides. You could see both fighters getting badly hurt. It's going to be a roller coaster. You know what I mean? I think it's just going to be a competitive 15-minute fight. So I got Luke Riley via decision anyway. This is another banger matchup here, boys. We have MVP Michael Page taking on Sam Patterson. This is the Battle of Britain here. Michael Page, the veteran in MMA, even if he is less of a veteran in the UFC than his opponent Sam Patterson. Michael Page is coming into this fight with a record of 24 wins and 3 losses. Extensive MMA experience and combat sports experience since a child for Michael Page. Sam Patterson, on the other hand, 14 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. Michael Page sitting as the -230 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Sam Patterson sitting at +195. So, boys, in the last fight, we spoke about camps. And I want to speak about camps in this fight as well, because these fighters know each other. Right? So this is Battle of Britain, and both of these guys know each other so well that Michael Venom Page actually didn't even want this fight. I've watched an interview from him saying that he was disappointed when he was booked this fight, but he just wanted to get back in there, so he accepted it. He said that he has actually trained with Sam Patterson multiple occasions, and that he trained with Sam Patterson specifically in his camps for Kevin Holland, Ian Gary, and Shara Magomedov. So these guys have been in the training room sparring for years at this point. They're not at the same gym, so it's not on like a daily basis. differences, but for those camps, they have trained, sparred together. So it's a very interesting booking to me. I didn't think the UFC would make this, but at the end of the day, it's a big fight for UK MMA, and it's a big fight in a division as well, because both fighters are on very good win streaks. Both fighters only have one loss in the UFC. Michael Venom Page lost to the guy who fought for the title against Shavkat. At least I think it was a title fight. Interim title fight? Anyway, in Ian Gary. And then Sam Patterson did get knocked out, but that was in a different weight class. He's changed weight class now, so he's undefeated in this new weight class, just knocking everyone out, running through them, even strikers that are quote-unquote better strikers than him. So this is a big, big fight. And if you look at the Sam Patterson social media, he seems to not really mind the booking. Michael Venom Page is not really happy about it, but on the Sam Patterson side, he's looking at it a little bit differently. He seems a little bit more hungry than me. He has a demeanor where it's like, it is what it is. He's saying that, yeah, I know Michael, but it is what it is. This is MMA. I need to get through Michael. And then once I'm through him, I'm going to become world champion. Whereas Michael Venom Page is on the different end of his career. Age difference is massive here. I wonder if that dynamic is going to play out in the fight, where one guy is a lot hungrier to win and one guy wants to fight the other guy more than the other guy wants to fight him. I don't know. What I do know is that when fighters know each other and have trained together consistently, you often see weird things happen in the cage. You often see things that are quite unpredictable in the cage. For example, you might get a wrestler who doesn't shoot takedowns, even though he shoots takedowns in every fight, because he knows that he couldn't take the guy down in the training room. Things like this do happen often. Sometimes it's like a sparring match. They don't really throw as much as you thought they would, because they know each other, they like each other, and there's a weird subconscious, unconscious human bias that they don't want to hurt each other. That's another dynamic that we see oftentimes as well. So I am just paused on this fight for a little bit. I think maybe we could see some weird stuff, but that's neither here or there. We don't really know that, but it is something to keep in mind when you're capping the fight. When we speak about the stylistics, this is a pure grappler versus striker matchup. Now, Sam Patterson has been a striker recently. I mean, he's running through these guys on the feet. Trey Waters knocked him out brutally. Danny Barlow knocked him out brutally. But at the end of the day, Sam Patterson is a grappler through and through. He's a very good one at that. If he takes you down, if he gets your back, you're in trouble, man. The way he hopped over, arm triangle, Kiefer Crosby, super, super easy, Even his Dana White's Contender Series fight, the way he got into the UFC, very great choke. So I think Sam Patterson is levels above Michael Page on the ground here, but I think Michael Page is levels above Sam Patterson on the feet. And Michael Page is one of the greatest strikers to grace MMA ever, and I'm so happy that I'm able to say that with evidence now, because I was saying that from day one, and everyone was saying to me, oh, it's because you're English, he's a can crusher, Bellator can crusher. Don't forget the days, boys. Michael Venom Page was slated by almost the entire MMA community for being a complete can crusher. And then what happened? He came to the UFC and beat everyone's favorite fighters, Jared Cannonier, Shara Magomedov, and people are like, oh shit, this guy's actually really, really good and hard to deal with. So Michael Venom Page, one of the greatest strikers we've seen in MMA, one of the hardest strikers to deal with in MMA, and he can piece Sam Patterson on the feet here. But I'll tell you something now. Sam Patterson has no worry about taking a shot to give one, and he actually has a lot of power up at the welterweight weight class. And I also feel like Michael Venom Page at his age, at welterweight, he did have a couple of fights at 185. Now he's moving down to welterweight. I don't know what that says about his durability. He has been knocked out before. I know it has only happened once, but he did get knocked out. And it seemed, it was off a uppercut when he was on the ground. It just seemed like a weird one. Michael Venom Page just doesn't get hit really at all, but I wouldn't be super surprised to see Sam Patterson hurt him on the feet. I don't think it's going to happen. Michael is so good on the feet, and he probably will clown Sam Patterson at times, but it's not like super surprising for me to see Sam Patterson like hit a knockdown and then hop on top of him or something like that. It wouldn't be crazy. I mean, at some point, Michael probably going to get knocked out. His style relies on speed and hands down, so he can get clocked, if you time him well enough. And he has got a good chin, but getting older, his chin's just going to be decreasing by the day. So that's kind of my reasoning as to why Sam could land a knockout here, or maybe a knockdown. But yeah, for the most part, Michael's going to make him look silly on the feet. His in and out karate style is amazing. His kicks are so good. His step in straight is like, you can't see it coming. And he has a lot of power in those hands as well. People don't really realize it is more speed and accuracy, but there is some real power behind those hands. He's one-shotted people before, and he can knock you out with all limbs, you know, the foot, the knee, the elbow, the punches, you know, the fists. So Sam has to mind his P's and Q's here. Sam has his head up with that tall man defense often, so he needs to be careful. I'm very interested to see Sam's game plan in it. In his last fights, his game plan has just been to walk forward and knock his opponents out. I don't think that's a good game plan against Michael Page. This isn't Danny Barlow. This isn't Trey Waters. This is Michael Venom Page, one of the greatest MMA strikers we've ever seen, and at least one of the hardest MMA strikers to deal with that we've ever seen. So I think Sam needs to come in here with a wrestling game plan. The issue is Sam's wrestling is not that good. He's not like super athletic wrestler. He is tenacious. He does have some good body lock trips, you know, some good throws, but most of the time he's getting on top of fighters because he's reversing them or he hurts them on the feet and then he hops on them after. He's not really shooting singles and doubles. So I'm very interested to see how the wrestling dynamic plays out, because Michael Venom Page has, you know, been anti-wrestling for his entire career, much like Israel Adesanya. I mean, this guy knows how to anti-wrestle. He's not bad at it. He's pretty good at it. So I'm very interested to see the whole wrestling dynamic play out. Look, if this was Pick'em, I'd probably be like, yeah, I understand why it's Pick'em. But man, Michael Venom Page is a massive favorite. I don't agree with that, boys. And I'm going to outright pick Sam Patterson to win this fight. I mean, at the end of the day, if he gets the fight to the ground, it could be a rear naked choke shortly thereafter. You know, it could be a arm triangle choke shortly thereafter. It could be full domination with big elbows to split Michael Venom Page open shortly thereafter. If it stays on the feet, yes, we think Michael's going to win, and he should win, and he could even knock out Sam Patterson. But I don't think Sam Patterson is... I don't think it's an impossibility that Sam Patterson lands a big shot on the feet either. And like I said, it could only take one takedown. So I mean, we got someone who's it's like a white belt versus black belt in striking and white belt versus black belt in the jiu-jitsu. And yes, every fight starts on the feet, so maybe you can say Michael's a bit of a favorite, but Sam Patterson's more trajectory, in my opinion. His mindset is for the title, where I don't think Michael Page is. He's got a massive age advantage. I would call it an advantage at this stage. So I don't understand the odds on Sam Patterson at plus 195. So based on the odds, I'm going to pick Sam Patterson to win this fight. I'm going to pick Sam Patterson to win this fight inside the distance. And I'm going to pick him to win it via submission. You know, I feel like Michael Venom Page is going to look very good early. But man, all you need to do is slip one time like he did against Jared Cannonier. Go back and watch that fight. He slipped and Jared Cannonier got on top of him. And if that's Sam Patterson and not Jared Cannonier, you could be looking at a submission loss on Michael Venom Page's record for the first time in his career. And I kind of see that happening in this one, boys. So I'm picking a big underdog here, Sam Patterson, to win the fight. Lads, two important things to tell you. The first is that I have a free Telegram where I give out a bunch of game completely for free that I don't post anywhere else on my social media. I give out free bets. I give out insights into the fight, insights that I come across in the week that I may not give out on YouTube or Instagram, and advice about betting, as well as just normal life, business, money advice as well. So it's completely free. You can join the link in the bio. On top of that, I have a private community where you can get access to the exact bets that I place every single week. So you can just copy and paste them and tell exactly what I'm betting. We have been absolutely crushing it ever since I started back in 2019 now. A long time ago, boys, and I've been betting for way longer before that. Everyone who has been with me since 2019 has made an insane, almost unbelievable amount, and our bankroll ROI since then is 7,000%, more than 7,000%. It's like 7,302%, something like that. Now, the game isn't without ups and downs. I feel to put that disclaimer in because apparently some people just don't understand. In sports betting, you don't win every bet, you don't win every week. Sometimes you go through some losing streaks where you lose for a couple of weeks. I have been on a bit of a losing streak recently. Again, this is recorded before the Vallejos fight, so I don't know. But 3 weeks means nothing when you've been winning most weeks for 6 years. So if you want to get direct access to one of the best betting VIPs on the entire planet, the link is in the bio for that. It's sublaunch.com/lucrativemma, and you can join my elite zone and cash cheddar with me. Now let's move on to the next fight. Next up, we have Baraniewski versus Austen Lane. Ewo coming off an absolute banger of a 3-minute fight, if it even lasted that much in his last fight. Honestly, maybe the 2025 fight of the year. I don't know if you can have fight of the year if it only lasted 3 minutes, but it's definitely up there. Anyway, he's coming into this fight with a record of 7 wins and no losses. Another undefeated fighter on this card. Austen Lane, on the other hand, he's definitely not undefeated. He has 13 wins with 7 losses. Baraniewski, a massive -400 favorite with the underdog price tag on Austen Lane sitting at +300 odds. Yeah, this fight is very straightforward to me, boys. Ewo's going to get another round 1 knockout like he did in his last fight. I mean, if he can knock out Ebo Aslan in round 1, he can knock out Austen Lane in round 1. Austen Lane is moving down from heavyweight to fight at the light heavyweight weight class. class, I don't think it's going to be good for him. I mean, at heavyweight, Austen Lane had no chin, and now he's moving down in weight class. He has to suck himself in more. He has to lose more weight. I think that's going to probably be a negative for his chin. He's also fighting a legit power puncher in Baraniewski here, which is not good. He's not coming down and fighting some, jab and stick and move guy at light heavyweight. He's fighting a guy who can actually hit legitimately hard. And the state of Austen Lane's chin is basically done. It's almost dust at this point. I don't think it's going to be anything outside of a round one finish. I think Austen Lane's only chance to win is doing what he did to Mario Pinto and just going crazy and throwing hands, and hopefully he can land a knockout because he's a big boy with a big punch. Most likely, though, he tries to grapple because that's kind of how he wins fights. The only time he's ever won a fight in the UFC has been through grappling. So he's probably going to shoot a takedown. But Baraniewski is a very solid guy. He's very small, stocky, low center of gravity, judo player, not easy to take down. So why can't, I could even see Austen Lane shooting a takedown, getting stuck at the hips, can't drive through, and just elbowing him and getting a knockout from the elbow just because Lane's head and chin, it's not there anymore, You only really need to land on him big once for the knockout to be there. And considering has a good will to win, he pushes through even when he's badly hurt, like against I think there's only going to be one winner here. I'm picking via knockout. The under 1.5 should be a good price as well, because as I said, the only chance, in my opinion, Austen Lane is to capitalize on Iwo's openness. I am going to say that here. Iwo is very open on the feet. We've seen that in a number of his fights, but definitely in his last fight. So Austen Lane, big guy, heavyweight. If he just throws hands, he can land a knockout here. It's definitely possible. I don't even know if he's going to do that, though. I think he's going to come through with like a wrestling game plan, which I don't think is going to be good for him. But yeah, overall, I'm picking Baraniewski via KO in round 1. Sticking on the main card, we have Roman Dolidze versus Christian Leroy Duncan. Roman Dolidze coming into this fight, a record of 15 wins, 4 losses. Leroy Duncan, on the other hand, 13 wins and 2 losses. Christian Leroy Duncan seeing himself as a massive favorite at minus 330 odds, with the underdog price tag on Roman Dolidze sitting at plus 270. Yeah, so Roman Dolidze basically fighting a title eliminator in his last fight. Now he's fighting an up-and-coming hungry guy who's on a win streak. The UFC is absolutely brutal, and he's a massive underdog. And I honestly feel like he should be a massive underdog. Christian Leroy Duncan is going to knock out Roman Dolidze this weekend, in my opinion. I mean, Christian Leroy Duncan is the much better striker. Let's just put that out there first of all. Roman doesn't have much on the feet. He doesn't have much on the feet. Yeah, he spammed a knockout back in the day against Kyle Dorcas, but if they fight that fight again, I don't even know if that would happen, honestly. I feel like maybe Kyle would even beat him. And he is powerful, he is big, but I don't think he's got good boxing. I don't think he has good kicks. I think CLD is so much more athletic, so much more dynamic, has so much more variety in his strikes, and just a better striker overall, even at judging distance and technicality, which is kind of crazy because CLD is the opposite of technicality. This guy's just a hurricane, as we saw in the Tulio fight where we did cash on him as a big underdog. That was solid there. But I even think technically he's probably a better striker as well, So Roman Dolidze is in over his head on the feet, and in the grappling, I don't think he's going to be able to take CL down consistently. CLD is very strong, heavy base. Roman's not the best wrestler at the best of times. Yeah, he could get a takedown or something, but I think CLD probably will find his way back to his feet. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, for the majority of this fight, I think it's going to be, in my opinion, either in the clinch, which I favor CLD there, honestly. He's very good in the clinch. It's one of his best attributes. Or on the feet, and I favor CLD there massively as well. So that's really how I see the fight playing out. Some clinch control. I don't think the wrestling and grappling is going to work for Roman that much, and mainly in the striking, and I think it's only a matter of time before he catches Roman's chin. Now, Roman's very durable. I don't want to just outright and say, yeah, it's definitely a knockout. I do think it will be a knockout, but Roman is very durable, so I could see a decision from CLD where he hurts him a couple of times, but Roman's just so durable, and, he's able to weather the storm, but he does get beat down, and it's a clear loss, maybe 110-8 or something like that. But yeah, ultimately, I'm going to pick Christian Leroy Duncan here. I think the dynamic strikes he's shown throughout his entire career, I think it's going to be too much for Roman Dolidze. Next up, a fighter that I'm going to have a lot of fun talking to you about making his UFC debut. A very legitimate prospect in Curtis Campbell is taking on the very tough and always motivated Danny Silva. Curtis Campbell coming into this fight with a record of 8 wins, 0 losses. Danny Silva, on the other hand, 10 wins and 2 losses. Currently, they have Curtis Campbell, the minus 165 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Danny Silva coming back at plus 145 odds. Woo-hoo-hoo. This is a good fight, boys. I cannot wait for Curtis Campbell to fight in his hometown in the UFC, making his UFC debut against a very good fighter in Danny Silva. But I think there's only going to be one winner here. I'm picking Curtis Campbell, and I'm going to I'm going to give you the reasons for that now, but I'm picking him out, right? I'm very excited for this guy to fight in the UFC. You know, he seems to be a very, very high-level prospect. He seems to be somebody who is going to find his way to the top of the division quite fast, similar to one of Danny Silva's recent opponents, Kevin Vallejos. You know, I really think that Curtis Campbell can make a run in the division and hit the top 15. I'm saying that right now. I believe he could be a top 15 fighter in the next few years. The way Curtis Campbell gets his grappling going and flows from position to position, great balance on top position, great balance and transitions in the jiu-jitsu, very good at taking the back, very good at flattening out his opponents, really, really good ground and pound, and great transitions to the submission when they present themselves. He really seems to be a fighter who takes the best option in MMA. In an MMA fight, if that makes sense. And that's very, very rare to see. You know, and what I mean by that is if a takedown is the best option, he's going to shoot a takedown. You know, if to strike at the moment is his best option, he's going to strike. And more specifically, if he's on the ground and the ground and pound is the best option, he's going to throw it. If an elbow is better than a punch on the ground, he's going to throw the elbow. You know, if it's time to hunt for the submission or time to just control his opponent, he's going to pick the best option. He seems to have a very good understanding of MMA and of how to fight. And that's a rare quality that I see. You know, I don't see that quality often. It could be the number one quality in MMA. You know, fight IQ / awareness / understanding of the game. I mean, it's a very high level understanding. Now, at the end of the day, boys, let me not get carried away. He hasn't been tested. This is a massive step up in competition. I mean, the guy who fought on Dana White's Contender Series has not got an inch on Danny Silva, and this is his UFC debut. But he has been 5 rounds before. He has fought some good level of competition on the English regional scene. And I personally think he's fully ready for this fight. He's got an extensive amateur career as well. So I don't think the moment is going to get to him. It could do, but I personally don't think it's going to get to him. And like I said, this guy always makes the right decision. He has a wide variety of attacks, mainly a grappler, but he has a wide variety of attacks even on the feet. He's finished people with body shots, finished people with jabs, or at least started off the knockout with jabs, knees, elbows, punches. Like, he's got every tool in the toolbox. Mainly in the grappling is really where he thrives, but he uses the best tool for at the best time. Danny Silva, on the other hand, very good fighter, bit more meat and potatoes though. You know, Danny Silva's going to walk forward, throw heavy shots with the boxing, be tough, push the pace for 15 minutes. He's a very tough out for everybody. You know, no matter who he fights, they're going to struggle, but he doesn't have like a standout skill. And I think Curtis Campbell has multiple standout skills in the grappling and in the overall understanding of the fight game in the cage. I see this fight playing out as Curtis Campbell is throwing a lot of kicks to the head, push kicks to the body, kicks to the liver, kicks to the legs. I think he'll want to stay away from boxing range for the most part, since Danny Silva is a better boxer than Curtis Campbell. I think if Danny Silva is able to close range and avoid that kicking style of Curtis Campbell, then I think Curtis Campbell's going to instantly tie him up and try and get him into the clinch. And he has some very good trips, some good throws. And while he is not very explosive, powerful, athletic as a wrestler, he's very tricky. He's a tricky grappler. You know, I could say he's similar to Charles Oliveira, not with what we've recently seen with the domination and body locks of Max Holloway and really powerful like that, but maybe similar to a younger Charles Oliveira, where he did have some trips in his arsenal. He had some throws, he had some tricky, he can jump on your back from standing, that type of stuff. His jiu-jitsu is not on Charles Oliveira's level right now. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he reminds me of a Charles-style grappler where he can still get the fight to the ground, even though he's not the best wrestler. That's kind of how I see Curtis Campbell, you know. I think he'll be able to maybe trip Danny Silva up once or twice. I do think he'll be able to get some grappling going. I don't think it's going to be like, I don't think he's going to just consistently take him down and stuff like that, but I do think he will get a couple of takedowns. He will get his grappling going, and he can submit you from one takedown, you know, or just dominate you on the mat. He could ride out the entire round by getting Danny Silva down once. So you have to be wary of that as well. Danny Silva has good takedown defense, so I don't think it's going to be a mauling, but like I said, one takedown could be the round, you know. I'm not 100% sure if he's going to get a finish over Danny Silva, but I am predicting him to win. It is minus 165, so the odds are definitely playable with the way I'm speaking to him. But I do want to do a disclaimer here, boys. I like Curtis Campbell in general. I like his style. I think he can be like, my breakdown is kind of predicated on his future skill set and where he can go in the octagon. He's not there yet. I just think he's got a very high ceiling. So I often get excited about those fighters. I may be a little bit biased about those fighters, but at minus 165, when I think his ceiling is top 15, top 10, I mean, it's an easy prediction for me to make, you know, but this is a big step up in competition and it's his UFC debut. So against a very, very good fighter. So it's not like a home run spot, but I got Kurtis Campbell to win this fight in his home country. Next up, Mason Jones, coming off an absolute banger war with Balaji Oki, is taking on Axel Sola, a UFC newcomer who showed out in his last fight against Rhys McKee. Mason Jones coming into this fight, extensive MMA record in his second stint in the UFC with a record of 17 wins, 2 losses. Axel Sola, on the other hand, 11 wins, 0 losses, another undefeated fighter on this card. He does have 1 draw though. Currently is a very, very closely lined fight, the most closely lined fight on the entire fight card. Mason Jones is a minus 125 favorite with the underdog price tag on Axel Sola sitting at plus 105. Very interesting fight here, very closely lined fight and very interesting fight, boys. And I have to take a pause straight away. First thing I noticed about this fight is, damn, I got Axel Sola wrong. You know, I thought he was going to lose to Rhys McKee in the last fight. I thought it could be a close fight, but I did think he was going to lose. He was moving up 15 pounds from the lightweight division where he's fighting now to the welterweight division against a big welterweight in Rhys McKee, who had a lot of UFC experience and I thought was a much better striker. And he ended up winning via knockout in round 3. And I thought Rhys McKee had better cardio as well. So that was like a super surprising fight for me to watch. I almost couldn't believe it. You know, I thought Axel Sola needed to get takedowns and control time to win there, but that wasn't the case. So yeah, I think I just had a bad read on Axel Sola, and I probably have a bad read on him still, and I want to see him have a couple more fights before I make a definitive read. Look, I'm going to watch more tape on him because, like I said, last time I had a bad read, so I want to watch even more tape on him than I did last time, even though that was a lot, but there's a few things I missed. Doesn't mean I definitely will pass on this fight. I may end up having a bet on this fight. I'm going to take some time to think. The fight is 11 days out. I got a lot of time to ruminate on my thoughts, but Axel Sola is a guy who usually likes to get takedowns, but he's good on the feet as well. He basically can do it all. He's a good MMA fighter, good cardio, and someone who is now at his natural weight class. He's moving back down from the welterweight division. He came in against Rhys McKee, moved up a weight class. Now he's back down, and he's a big, big guy for welterweight. You know, he didn't look really that small for welterweight, so he's going to look massive for lightweight, I should say. I think I said middleweight, but he's going to look big in the lightweight division against Mason Jones. I think this fight is probably going to be a war. I mean, Mason Jones knows no other way. He's going to walk forward, throw so much strikes, shoot, test his opponent's wrestling, throw kicks, elbows, big body shots in close. He's very hittable. Sola can be hittable and hurt too. They both can be hurt. They both have been hurt in their career. It's going to be a great fight, boys. One thing I've noticed about Axel Sola is he dips his head often, and I think that Mason Jones could maybe time a knee or uppercut up the middle, seeing that he does that in a lot of his fights. One thing I noticed as well is that Axel Sola, just like me, just like us, does a lot of tape study for his opponents. So we can see this video on the screen now where he's actually breaking down Mason Jones's fight against Balaji Oki. You know, he's actually watching the fight, which I think is definitely beneficial, you know, for a fighter. Some fighters do, some fighters don't. Some fighters leave it up to their camp. I think the more information, the better. As long as you don't get over emotional and worry about your opponent so much, which just comes down to emotional control, which can be taught, you know, over time. Some fighters have it, some fighters don't. We see that in the octagon all the time. But I do think that if you're a smart guy who can handle your emotions, then watching tape on your opponent is only going to help you, you know. So Axel Sola seems like a guy who's very dedicated to his craft, someone who I believe is improving fight to fight. You know, it seems like he's getting better. Someone who I've also seen on his Instagram has been out to Dagestan and trained with them. I don't know exactly when, but he has a post from just 4 weeks ago of him in Dagestan, you know, training, which is obviously beneficial for any fighter on the roster. So the way I see this fight playing out is Sola's going to be on the back foot, and he's going to be pinging the jab, and he's going to be throwing some good kicks, and he's going to be touching Mason Jones's chin early, but Mason Jones will slowly get into the fight, will start breaking him down. When I say slowly, it could be after a couple of minutes. You know, I'm not saying this has to be round 3 or something. Like, slowly start to chip away from minute 1, even though Sola will be winning early, in my opinion. Sola might get some takedowns here. I don't think he'll be able to hold Mason Jones down for long. Mason Jones probably is going to test his wrestling as well. And I think as the fight goes on, Mason Jones gets more into it, And I am going to pick Mason Jones to win this fight. He's got more UFC experience. He's shown just as much, if not more, will to win than Axel Sola. He can make some bonehead decisions, and I feel like Sola has much higher fight IQ, so that could be a big detriment for Mason Jones. You know, he may engage in wrestling or grappling or not engage in it like he didn't against Jeremy Stephens because he wanted to entertain the crowd and win a bonus. That's coming from his mouth. So he can do silly things like this that cost him fights. And ultimately, I think the UFC experience is the reason I'm picking Mason Jones. Because like I said, I don't have a great read on Axel Sola. I want to do more tape study on this one. I think I may have underrated him in the past. Hopefully I'm not overrating him now, because I do think that was a bad performance from Rhys McKee and a little bit uncharacteristic of him, just how the fight played out specifically. Not that he lost, but how the fight played out. So maybe I'm now overrating him, but yeah, I'm going to pick Mason Jones anyway for this one, but it's not a strong pick, and I want to do more tape study before I actually finalize my prediction, but Mason Jones via decision will be my pick. Next up, we have an epic fight in the featherweight division. Nathaniel Wood is taking on Losene Keita, who is finally making his UFC debut. Nathaniel Wood coming into this fight of a record of 22 wins, 6 losses. Losene Keita, on the other hand, 16 wins, 1 loss. Nathaniel Wood on an insane win streak at the moment, but the odds makers don't care. They have Losene Keita as the minus 180 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Nathaniel Wood sitting at plus 155 odds. All right, this is an absolute banger of a fight, boys. Fire. It's going to be fireworks as well, as is every Nathaniel Wood fight for the most part. Somehow he's been to decision so many times in a row, but every fight looks like it was going to be finished. I don't understand how he's gone to decision so much. It's because he's so tough and he just hasn't been able to put a lot of these guys away. But this is a great fight, you know, and this is definitely a candidate for a fight that finally could finish. I'm going to tell you my biases straight up, boys. I consider Nathaniel Wood a friend, so I'm always going to root for him and want him to win the fight. So I'm just going to put that out there straight away. You know, I ain't going to spend too long on this fight, boys, because, yeah, I am going to root for Nathaniel Wood. He's a great fighter, a great striker. He's good. He's very well-rounded. If you don't knock him out, he's probably going to win, because it's very hard to beat this guy via decision. I mean, he does everything right in the pocket, you know. He does everything right in the pocket. He does everything right at range. He can be caught, and he has been hurt a few times. He can be caught on the chin. He did get caught by Jose Delgado, but he's so tough and so hard to put away. You have to go back to his 135-pound days against John Dodson, who landed a shot when he was actually, you know, looking very good in that fight, Nathaniel Wood, but he did get caught in round 3. Dodson, one of the hardest hitters in the division at that time, and, you know, just very, very fast. And Nathaniel Wood moving up to 145, you see he has the speed advantage against a lot of these guys, you know, and he's on a great win streak at 145. He had a fight against Jose Delgado last time out. A lot of people scored that fight against him, but that was an all-out war. It was a back and forth fight. Nathaniel Wood did so well to get knocked down in round 1, ended up knocking down Jose in the same round, and then look good in the next 2 rounds as well. So it just shows the heart and the strength of the guy. And this is a great fight. Losene Keita is a great signing for the UFC. He was supposed to fight Patricio Pitbull when they were scheduled, but he had to pull out. He missed weight. And, you know, usually if it's your debut and you miss weight, like, the UFC might just, and the fight has to get cancelled, which it did, UFC might just sack you right then and there. But they didn't, and there's a reason why. Losene Keita could potentially be a star. He's a very, very good fighter. Insane physicality, explosiveness, dynamic striking, power in all limbs, very, very patient. He kind of reminds me of like Luke Riley if he was way more athletic, way more explosive, way more physical with way more power. Kind of. I don't know. That's probably a bad comparison, but I guess the real thing that, you know, ties them two together is the patience and awareness in the cage, in the striking, you know, because they both do have that. They both hunt their opponents and land killer blows, and that's what Losene Keita is very good at. Losene has his issues as well. It's important to mention that Keita is, or was, 155-pound champion for Octagon, and this is a 145-pound contest, and he was also 145-pound champion, so he was double champ there. He stepped up in weight class and won a fight at 155. We have to remember that Nathaniel Wood, about 5 fights ago, was fighting at 135, you know, so we have a guy who has experience and knockout wins at 155 facing a guy who used to be a 135er. I think they're both solid 145ers. I feel like Wood could probably still make 135, and I don't think Keita could, but they are good at 145. You know, they're both on win streaks at 145. That's probably, at this point, their natural weight class. I've seen both fighters hurt and rocked badly, you know, and almost knocked out. So I think we can kind of see that again, and I think we will see that again. The one thing I don't like for Nathaniel Wood in his recent streak in the featherweight division is that fight against Naimov, that fight against Mohamed Naimov, where he was kind of just controlled physically, and he lost the fight due to physicality. And I do think that the physicality advantage goes to Keita here, but he's not going to use it like Naimov did. He's not going to go out there grappling Nathaniel like Naimov did, so I'm not as worried about it. But I am worried about the power from Keita. I am worried about the big shots landing. So yeah, that's my breakdown of the fight, boys. That's the technical breakdown. I'm rooting for Nathaniel Wood, as I always am. I don't know if I'm going to make a bet on this fight. Maybe you could play the under, but I mean, it's just not hitting like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fights for Wood or something like that, even though like 80% of those fights should have gone under. Maybe I kind of feel like this is the one that finally does go under, to be honest. But that's like, I don't know what the odds are going to be, and I haven't made a decision whether I actually want to play that or not, right? I'm just throwing something out, I'm just throwing certain bets out and certain ideas I have of the fight. I think this one probably ends inside the distance, but yeah. I'm going to root for Nathaniel Wood, as always, and I'm hoping he gets it done. Next up, we have a heavyweight matchup on tap as Louie Sutherland is taking on Brando Pericic. The Balkan Bear, you know who we're rooting for in that one. We have the Balkan Bear coming into this fight, 5 wins, 1 loss. Louie Sutherland, on the other hand, 10 wins, 4 losses. A lot of respect next to Bear's name here, minus 260 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Louie Sutherland sitting at plus 220. Yeah, so for this one, boys, I'm going to keep it quite short and sweet. I know Brando in real life, so of course I'm going to root for him here. I hope he wins. I think he will win. I think he's going to get a knockout. That's my prediction. I'm not going to break this one down too technically, boys. Louie Sutherland is going to want to go in there and wrestle because you don't want to stand with the Balkan Bear. He's very powerful on the feet, very fast for a heavyweight, and throws good shots, straight shots, technical shots with a lot of power. He's known to be a brawler, and he will swing and bite the mouthpiece with anyone, but he can also fight technically as well with just a lot of power, So Louie's definitely going to want to go in there and grapple him. I know that for sure. The issue I have with Brando is that he's fighting in the UK, which is the furthest you can fly from his current country, his current location, which is New Zealand. He's from Australia, but he trains in New Zealand at City Kickboxing with Israel Adesanya, Carlos Ulberg, and all of those guys. If you didn't know, now you know. And so he has to fly all the way to England, fly all the way to London, which is not good. I know the reason he didn't fight on the recent Australia card was a lot of fighters turned him down, did not want to fight him, so they couldn't get him a fight there. He ended up fighting in London, which I don't love. He's got to make that flight. I've made that flight many times. I make it at least once a year. It's a bastard of a flight, So I'm hoping that Brando goes out there early. I don't know exactly how early he's going to get out there yet. I haven't spoken to him about how early he's going out for this fight or this fight in general. So I'm hoping he gets out there and acclimatizes early. That's something I don't like. Another thing I don't like is he doesn't have the experience of Louie going late into fights in his professional MMA career. So, if the fight gets past round 1, Louie could start to use his experience there to try and slow Brando down, get some takedowns, etc., etc. And I think he's going to need to do that because it's going to be all Brando early, landing big shots. But that's my technical breakdown of the fight, boys. As I've said in a fight earlier with Nathaniel Wood. And so, yes, I am biased. I've still given you my overall technical analysis, boys. Take it for what it's worth. And that's it. I got Brando winning this fight via knockout. Next up, Antonio Trocoli, still in the UFC somehow, is taking on Mantas Kondratavicius. Trocoli coming into this fight with a record of 12 wins, 6 losses on a pretty big L streak. Kondratavicius has a record of 8 wins with only 1 loss. Wide odds on this one. Kondratavicius has odds of minus 550 with the underdog price tag on Antonio Trocoli sitting at plus 400. Yeah, so I'm going to be quick on this one, boys. I mean, Trocoli is basically a professional poker player at this point, a lot more than he is a professional MMA fighter. When he fought Mansour Abdul Malik, I said Mansour was going to finish him in round 1 because Trocoli is no longer an MMA fighter. You go on his Instagram, every single post is about poker, whereas back in the day, he used to all be about MMA. He's won a lot of money in poker. He's making more money from poker than he is from the UFC. And so I don't think he wants to be in the octagon. I think he's just cashing a check here. Why not? It's more money for the bankroll for poker. And I think that Mantas is going to go in there and finish him probably in round 1 with a straight right like he did in his Dana White's Contender Series fight and like he's done in almost every fight he's ever been in. Now, Mantas is a very, very aggressive fighter, and I think that's going to play into his hand against Trocoli. He has good uppercuts, good overhands. He times his shots very, very well. He finds the chin very easily. He's very reckless, very open to be hit on the feet himself. I don't think he's a great fighter. He has a lot of growing to do, but I do think he has a good skill set where he could grow into it. The one issue he's had is being grappled. You know, you go back and look at his lone loss. He was completely grapple in that fight. But before he got grappled at the end of round 1 and in round 2, ultimately for the finish, he was tagging up his opponent, you know, big uppercuts, as I mentioned before. And if that was Trocoli, I feel like it would have been a knockout for Mantas round 1, you know. So, like I said, Mantas is very like off balance at times, gets taken down easily, and Trocoli still has some good takedowns and stuff, but I have to pick Mantas here, man. I think he's a legitimate MMA fighter where I think he's fighting a poker player at this point, you know, and he's got good power. And Trocoli's been finished multiple times. And I don't think Trocoli's going to push through and has the will to win if he gets hurt and dropped. He's probably just going to curl up and be like, all right, sweet, I'm done. You know, this really hurts. So that's my opinion on the fight. I do think Mantas is going to win. All respect to Trocoli, he's getting in there. I personally think he's more of a poker player now than an MMA fighter. And I think if you asked him that, he'd probably admit that as well. That, yeah, I'm more focused on poker than I am on MMA, but obviously I'm still an MMA fighter, so why would I not take these UFC fights? But for me, as a sports bettor, when I see that, and I mean, you know, it's funny because the same thing in poker, really. Like when I see that, I'm like, okay, well, I'm definitely taking the MMA fighter here. So it should be a round 1 finish for Mantas, in my opinion. Next up, we have a short notice matchup: Mario Pinto versus Felipe Franco. Mario Pinto supposed to be fighting Mick Parkin, but Parkin withdrew. So now Franco steps in on short notice. Pinto has a record of 11 wins, 0 losses. Another undefeated fighter on this card. Felipe Franco, on the other hand, 10 wins with only 1 loss. So good record for both guys there. The odds makers do not seem to care about the record, as Mario Pinto is officially the joint biggest favorite on the fight card at minus 550 odds. The underdog price tag on Felipe Franco coming back at plus 400. Yeah, so boys, this is an absolutely insane booking. I don't understand. I mean, I do understand how, but I don't understand why Franco is in the UFC. I mean, this guy fought on the Dana White's Contender Series, got finished in round 3, looked kind of terrible in that fight against a fighter who, even though he finished him, he didn't get a contract, which is super rare. If you get a finish on Dana White's Contender Series, it's almost guaranteed you're going to get a contract. That just shows you what the UFC and Dana White thought about his opponent that beat him, and now he's in the UFC. I understand Mario Pinto's fight was cancelled. He was meant to be fighting Mick Parkin, as I said in the introduction, so that's why Franco's coming in here on short notice, but this is as close to a lock as I've ever seen one, and I don't think I've ever said that word on this show, because there's no such thing as locks in MMA. You know, minus some thousands do lose. We see it time and time again. Daniel Selhuber got knocked out by Bobby Green. I mean, that's crazy, you know? I can't even compute that to this day, how he got knocked out. Okay, yeah, if you lost, you lose, but like getting knocked out is just absolutely unbelievable, you know? So in this fight, I'm never going to say lock, but I think it's as close to a lock as you're going to get. I mean, Mario Pinto is just a much better striker. Felipe Franco is 10-1, but look at his record on the screen right now, right? His record is absolutely insane. He has fought nobody. I mean, this may be the worst record I've ever seen. And what I mean by the worst record, he's 10-1. It's a good record. But what I mean is the fighters he has fought, look at their records. It's 0-2. It's 0-5, 0-6, 0-0, 0-0. Like every single fighter he's fought has an awful record, like horrific, like one of the worst records I've ever seen. So, and then he fights someone who's not even that good in Freddie Vidal at light heavyweight, by the way. This is heavyweight, right? At light heavyweight, and he gets choked out in round 3, gets reversed in round 1. I mean, Franco's game is like taking you down, throwing massive shots with his athleticism and explosiveness, but also taking you down and trying to maul you on the ground. But Freddie Vidal, who's not even that good, was able to reverse him and maul him on the ground at times. Even round 1, he was smashing him at the end of round 1. He basically lost every round, and then in round 3 got choked out. I mean, it was kind of insane. So now to be moving up a weight class against Mario Pinto, who's way better than Freddie Vidal, and he's way bigger, Pinto's going to dominate him, man. Pinto's going to finish this fight inside 1 round, maximum 2 rounds, probably 1 round, and that's my prediction for the fight. Mario Pinto, easy. Next up, we have Shamrock taking on Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwady. Shamrock coming into this fight, 12 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw out of the Paddy Pimblett camp, just like the co-main event fighter Luke Riley. They're both on the card together. They train together. Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwady coming into this fight, a long layoff from MMA, but he has a good record, 15 wins, only 4 losses. Very closely lined fight again. Abdul-Kareem has a minus 125 favorite price tag next to his name, with the underdog price tag on Shamrock sitting at plus 105 odds. This fight is a very weird one, boys. I need to get a better read on it. I want to do more tape study on this one. Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwady has been away for a long time, so is he going to come back looking great? I'm not sure. I think he can win the jab war here, like he does against a lot of fighters. He's got a good jab. I think he can circle on the outside and land some kicks. I think he's the better wrestler, so he could potentially dictate where the fight goes. But I think Shamrock has better cardio. I think Shamrock is more durable. I think Shamrock has better kicks overall, although Al-Selwady can also hurt him with calf kicks because he's got some good calf kicks. Shamrock's longer. He can use his length, some powerful kicks, and Shamrock's a much better grappler in the jiu-jitsu, you know. Wrestling-wise, I give it to Abdul, but Shamrock gets on his back once, it could be a wrap. You know, he's very fast at transitioning to the back. He is also in the Paddy Pimblett camp, just like the co-main eventer, Luke Riley, and he has more of a Paddy Pimblett style, you know, where he's throwing those kicks, and trying to jump on your back instantly to get a rear naked choke. That's kind of Shem's style. Very different to Luke Riley. So it's a tough one for me to predict, man. I mean, you know, on the one hand, I could see Abdul-Kareem just jabbing him up and having the better hands, having the better jab and staying on the outside with leg kicks and then taking him down at pivotal moments, staying on top, not getting swept and like winning the rounds that way. Kind of how he did in his Dana White's Contender Series fight against George Hardwick. But at the same time, I could see Shamrock maybe losing a little bit, but slamming some big kicks that make the judges go, ooh, and then just getting on the back once and getting a rear naked choke. And I also think Shem's more tough and durable. So if he pushes the pace and really makes it dirty, he could find himself to the back, find himself in a transition, and again, submit Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwady. So it's a very strange fight for me. I don't really know how to predict it. I'm gonna do more tape study on this one. I haven't watched many fights of either guy, so I need to really do that before I give a outright prediction that I'm comfortable giving. Shamrock actually trains with George Hardwick as well, who was the guy who Abdul beat on Dana White's Contender Series. So, you know, that camp has trained for him already. Maybe Shem can get some insight there, but George did look kind of lost in that fight and lost it pretty clearly, so I don't know how much it will help him. But yeah, like I said, boys, this is a weird one that I'm not too comfortable on. I'm going to pick Shamrock. He is English. I like him. We follow each other on Instagram. I'm going to root for him. But honestly, being completely unbiased and transparent, it's a close fight. I think it could go either way. I don't know how to judge Abdul coming off such a long layoff, and I want to do more tape on this one before I really commit to anything. So it's a pass for me for now on bets, but I'll pick Shem to win. Next up, we're in the women's MMA strawweight division as Shanelle Dyer is taking on Ravina Oliveira. Shanelle Dyer, one of these unique fighters that actually got signed off of a loss on Dana White's Contender Series. She is making a UFC debut against Oliveira here. The odds makers do not seem to care that she lost her last fight on Dana White's Contender Series because she is a massive -305 favorite with the underdog price tag on Ravina Oliveira sitting at +255 odds. Yeah, I'm going to be quick on this one as well, boys, because I do want to do more tape on this one. But I just think that where they're currently at, Shanelle Dyer has way too much for her on the feet, which is where the fight is going to be taking place. Oliveira, I'm sure, is going to try and shoot for some takedowns in this fight. But man, if you go back and look at the Lisboa fight, she doesn't look good in the wrestling department or the grappling department there, to be honest. And Lisboa is a pure striker. She does like to grapple a little bit, but she's kind of bottom of the barrel and she's mainly a striker. To me, that's kind of unforgivable, man. Obviously, in her next fight, she's going up against a very good opponent. I mean, not very good, but pretty good opponent in Luciano, you know, better than both of these girls. She got submitted in round 3 there. It was kind of an easy fight for Luciano. She looked all right at moments, Oliveira early, but then she kind of just faded. And it's the same thing happened in the Lisboa fight. Not where she faded, but she looked good in moments. She did get takedowns. She did get on top of Lisboa in round 3. But outside of that, she kind of got bullied. She got taken down herself, controlled. And as I said, by more of a Muay Thai striker. So man, if she ain't going to be able to get a wrestling and grappling going, she's just going to be outgunned on the feet. You know, Shanelle throws way more, hits harder, has way better arsenal to her strikes. I mean, she ain't fighting Carol Farrow. You know, Shanelle Dyer is coming off the Dana White's Contender Series fight against Farrow. One of the best Dana White's Contender Series fights in a while. As I said, they signed her even off a loss. She got dropped in that fight like 3 times. She got put down to her ass multiple times. But Farrow hits ferociously, you know, with massive hands. And I mean, Oliveira is probably she has half the power, like half of the power of a Carol Farrow. So I don't see her landing big shots and knocking down Dyer. And outside of the knockdowns, I mean, Dyer was looking good in that fight. You know, it was a very close fight. So yeah, I just feel like Dyer's, you know, going to piece her up on the feet, man. And grappling's not really going to be there for Oliveira. So it's going to be a striking bout where she does lose. The reason I want to do more tape is because I want to see how I believe she will win the fight. Because I honestly don't think it's like out of the realm of possibility that Dyer finishes her. I mean, out of Ravina's 3 losses, 2 have come inside the distance. They've both been via submission, so you know she's getting submitted. Dyer's not really, it's not really a game to go out there, take you down and dominate you on the mat. But I do think that a finish is possible, but that's why I want to do more tape to really go in depth on, how much finishing upside I really give Dyer. But that's all neither here or there. The ultimate prediction is Shanelle Dyer to win this fight. We move to the women's MMA bantamweight division as Melissa Mullins is taking on Luana Carolina. Melissa Mullins coming into this fight with a record of 7 wins, 2 losses. Luana Carolina, on the other hand, 11 wins, 5 losses. Officially the closest line fight on the card, as Luana Carolina is the -120 favorite with the underdog price tag on Melissa Mullins sitting at +100. Yeah, this is a greasy women's MMA fight, boys. I mean, take your pick on this one. We got Luana Carolina, who's definitely the better striker, taking on Melissa Mullins, who's definitely the better grappler. We got a grappler versus striker here, the exact same as we've had in almost every Mullins fight, and definitely in Luana Carolina's last fight when she took on Michelle Montague. That was an absolute beatdown, and I actually question how she's going to come back from that. She was battered in that fight, taken down multiple times, mauled on the ground. It's kind of crazy, a minor miracle she survived to a decision. One judge scored it 30-25, and I will say that she did get a point deducted, I believe, in round 2, because she kicked Michelle when she was on the ground. So it would have been 30-26, but another judge scored it 30-26. Yeah, she got absolutely mollywopped, beat down bad. So how is she going to come back from that? Is she going to come back normal? Because that's a bad beat down to take. I don't know if she's just going to come back super confident and stuff like that. And if she gets taken down again, she might have flashbacks to that fight, where she was brutalized. I don't think Melissa Mullins is anywhere near as good as Michelle Montague, but she is aggressive with the takedowns. She will shoot them consistently, and she is pretty good once she gets on top. So I could see Luana Carolina, succumbing to the same fate as what happened in Michelle Montague fight. But at the same time, she dropped Michelle Montague in round 2, which is kind of crazy considering how badly she got beat up. But she did drop her. I don't think she has much power, but I mean, she still dropped Michelle Montague. The issue is the way she was getting taken down by Michelle Montague was kind of alarming. Michelle's a very big girl for the weight class, but I don't think her wrestling's very good. That's the issue. Like, if you watch all of her fights, her wrestling's not that good. Now, she's massive for the weight class, so that's really what it came down to. It was just really the size and the strength. But her wrestling ain't that good, and Luana Carolina couldn't stuff a takedown to save her life there. She got absolutely dominated every time. She got taken down by everything. Michelle Montague got knocked down, as I said, and off the knockdown, she got a takedown, which is very, very bad. The only other time I've seen that is I have seen that before. Ilya Topuria kind of had that against Jai Herbert. Uman Nurmagomedov had that against Bekzat. But for the most part, if you're getting knocked down and then getting the knockdown into a takedown, it's a bad look, So I'm not surprised if Melissa Mullins gets takedowns here. I do think Luana's takedown defense will look better than it did in that fight. And I was impressed with Luana's ability to survive, even though she got mauled. She did survive at the end of the day. She didn't get submitted. She was in a lot of submission attempts, but she didn't get submitted. So that's a good look here. Another thing we have to speak about in this fight, which is very important, like everything I've said at the moment is really important. And something else that's really important is that the fight IQ of Melissa Mullins is absolutely horrific at times. There's times against Zeleznikova and other fighters where she's just not shooting takedowns. I don't know what her issue is. She just doesn't shoot, even though she has to win the fight. So I could easily see Luana Carolina just piecing her up on the feet because she is the better striker, and Melissa just not shooting takedowns for whatever reason. On that note, Luana Carolina has way more UFC experience. She's been in these type of fights before, where it's kind of like a grindy back and forth fight. Fighters are trying to take her down. She's trying to defend. I have to go with Luana Carolina here. I feel like the biggest upside in the fight is probably Mullins, because if she gets on top, she could maul like Michelle did, but I can't say she's going to be able to finish her if Michelle didn't. Michelle was very close, so I wouldn't be surprised if Melissa finishes, but I can't pick Melissa after the horrific fight IQ she's shown in her fights against someone with way more UFC experience, way better wins, and just more proof of a fighter who is going to go out there and win a UFC fight, So, yeah, I'm going to pick Luana Carolina in this one. There's no confidence here. She could get taken down and dominated. She could even get submitted, even though Michelle wasn't able to do it. So, yeah, this is a weird-ass fight. We'll see where the line goes in this one. I want to tape a little bit more of Melissa just to see how much I can trust her to go for them takedowns, because some fights she does and some fights she doesn't. So it's just kind of like pick your poison there. But at the moment, I'm going to pick Luana Carolina to win this fight, probably via decision. Damn, that was a long one, boys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Broke down every single fight on the card. Let's cash this weekend. It's in my hometown of London. So the good juju is going to be on my side and our side. Hopefully you cash. Hopefully I cash. Hopefully we all cash. And hopefully the bookies dash because they're scared of us cashing. Peace, boys. Love. And I'll see you next week. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff.